Hello, everyone. Welcome to the contributor meeting. I'm going to be your host today. I'm Leo. And starting off with triage and discussions, we had Nitish and Pasha last week. Um, Anything to mention from last week, triage?
No, from my side, just regular reviews. Didn't notice anything specific. However, here is one item that on pull request that Reggie mentioned, but maybe we will discuss it during contribution meeting because it's already planned. So nothing
Cool.
from my side. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Pasha. Nitish, you have one topic.
Actually, this was a vulnerability report. I think I just want to make sure that we are up to the state. I don't know about the vulnerability actually, but just want to maybe the maintainers can take a look at this issue. I think that more detail has been sent on the email. Uh, it was my bad that I pointed them to the Slack channel. I'm really sorry for that. But I think the maintainers might have received an email regarding the vulnerability report. So that can be tackled there. But just want to bring this up. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Nitish. And Reggie, you also have a topic here.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I have noticed that there is an issue with migrating to 3.0. It is related to switching to annotation tracking. It looks a little like a progression issue. And so what happens is that for users who are using the applications with the sync option of apply out of sync only true, those users, after they have upgraded, and if they had label and now they have the annotation resource tracking, basically this sync with the apply out of sync only is a sync that is not good enough in order to prevent the orphan situation. Because when a sync is performed on an application this way, basically the application is not really synced, and so the old label of resource tracking remains and the annotation is not getting added. And so after an upgrade, when a user of such an application wants to prune it, delete this application, then there will remain orphaned resources. And so this would mean that the sync for those applications would need to be performed explicitly. And so one thing is to document that this is an issue, and this would require an explicit sync for all the applications that have the apply out of sync only true. And the other thing is actually the remediation of this. Is Michael here?
I don't see him in the call.
Oh, okay. Because we started a
Oh, he
discussion.
just joined.
Oh, great. That's a perfect timing. And so in order to mitigate this issue for users with applications that have apply out of sync only, if there are like only small number of applications, people can do it from the UI and it's not a problem. They would just have to uncheck the option of apply out of sync. Everything will be great. But for people who actually have big amount of such applications, it would make sense for them to do it in an automatic way. The most, I don't know, for me, the most intuitive way is to perform it with the Argo CD CLI, this sync. But the problem is that the Argo CD CLI, and this is something that is, I described it in the pull request and in the issue. If you just perform Argo CD up sync and you don't give it any sync options, then it will basically just use the options that are on the application spec. And so this means that there is no option to override the apply out of sync only when using the CLI. And so currently there is no mitigation of people cannot mitigate this problem if they use Argo CD CLI. They can mitigate it using UI. They can mitigate it using the API. but not with the Argo CD CLI, because the CLI behaves differently than how the UI behaves and how the API behaves. Because for UI and API, when you don't pass any sync options, it will go and actually override with what's on the application spec with those empty sync options. And the CLI does not perform this overriding. And so for me, it seemed intuitive that the CLI behavior will be streamlined with how the UI and the API behave. And I wanted to discuss it because I understand that, Michael, you have concerns about that, right?
Yeah, so I guess to summarize my understanding, we need folks to be able to do a sync operation where apply out of sync only is not true, even though it's set to true on the application. But if you just do an Argo CD app sync, then it's going to respect whatever's on the application, which means out of sync only. And if you try to specify like apply out of sync only equals false on the CLI is like, well, everything's false. So I'm not going to bother overwriting anything on the server side. I got a couple proposals. Is all that correct, Reggie?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So a couple options I think we have are, one, we could change the behavior of the CLI, which is already kind of unintuitive, to say, well, if you specify apply out of sync only equals false, then we're going to override what the server has. We're going to override the app's config, but only if you explicitly say apply out of sync only equals false. That's a breaking change, because today, if you set false, we don't override the app's config. And I don't love a breaking change on something as significant as sync options. Kind of a fun option would be to just recommend that people set server-side apply, because setting any of the three CLI sync options, replace, server-side apply, or apply out of sync only, setting any of those causes us to override all of the application's sync options. So running with server-side apply would just cause it to ignore the apply out of sync only. It's weird, but I think it would work.
But Michael, from what you described, it seems to me that if you provide that flag in the CLI, apply auto sync only false, and that is not respected. I understand your argument saying that this is a breaking change, but in my perspective, this is a bug, right? So
Yeah.
it's a bug that if we fix, it will break, but it will break.
Intuitively.
Yeah, exactly. To make the CLI work,
it would break the right way.
it will break the right way. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't be opposed to in going that direction. I think it's more intuitive to have the CLI working as expected and be super protective in breaking whoever is using that CLI in a bad way.
So agree. I think if we did go the direction of saying, okay, we're going to break, an additional breaking change we could make that I think would be intuitive is to say, we're only going to change the sync options that you specify on the CLI. Because today, if you specify any one of them as true, we ignore whatever's on the app. So if I specify server-side apply equals true and out of sync only is true on the app, we ignore out of sync only and we just apply server-side apply. We could change it to where the CLI pulls down the current config and just changes whatever is specified and preserves everything else that's currently configured on the application.
That sounds more intuitive to me, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slows down the CLI. You've got to do a round trip to get the config. Meh.
Yeah.
So, sorry again. So, what is the change that you're proposing, Michael?
My proposal is, I'll put it in terms of code because I think it'll clarify the best. Today, If any sync option is specified on the CLI as true, we initialize a new sync options object and we send that as a non-nil object to the server. And the server's like, okay, I have a non-nil sync options object. I'm going to use whatever's set here, even if every field is false, which today can't actually happen. My proposal would be, instead of initializing a completely blank struct, we go to the server, we pull down the application config, we construct an object with whatever sync options are currently configured on the application. And then if any sync options are specified on the CLI, either true or false, if they're explicitly set, we explicitly change that value in the struct that we got off of the server, and then we send that back with whatever mutations the user requested. In other words, we only change what's on the application. We don't send a whole new batch of sync options.
Got you. So I have two thoughts on this. First of all, we're kind of trying to solve the eternal rest problem, whether you use patch or you use put and getting the resource first. We don't have a patch option here with the CLI, although this would be the best way to go. And then just specifying, like the operation. What do you want to do? You want to remove it? You want to update it? Whatever. So this is one thing, but yeah, I understand. The second thing is, what would you expect to happen if I don't pass any of the sync options? Because when I do it from the UI or from the API, the spec is overridden with empty options.
If I click the sync button in the UI, if I recall correctly, it pre-populates the checkboxes with whatever the app config is. Is that accurate?
True, but you can uncheck them, and then there is an empty array or even empty option sent to the server, and it's overridden with that empty thing.
It's overridden with the empty. So if I am in the user interface and I've hit the sync button and the little flyout comes out and I uncheck everything, my feeling is that I've sort of explicitly asked the user interface to set all those options to false. Even if I don't uncheck them, like I'm looking at them and I have a sense that, okay, I'm going to request a sync and all those options are going to be false. With the CLI, you don't have that same sense because it isn't presenting to you on the front end, here are the current configurations and here's what you're changing. So it's a little different flow. But I think the UI behavior you're describing makes sense to me. I think that's fine. The API is a little different because the API isn't as much of a user experience, like in terms of I'm manually doing stuff. People kind of expect to need to read into the docs a bit more, maybe even read code to understand the API's behavior. It's different for a CLI or UI.
Okay. So basically what we want to do is we want to have the CLI get the options first and then just update the options that were explicitly set as a parameters to the command. Right?
That's what I'm proposing. Even as I'm saying it, though, I do understand like there are thousands and hundreds of thousands of places in CI scripts where the Argo CD CLI is used basically as code. I really loathe breaking changes, especially ones that are kind of subtle like this. A big part of me wants to say, introduce a new flag that enables the new behavior of the sync options flags, and then deprecate the state where that flag is not enabled. And then basically wait until 4.0 to actually just completely switch over. That's my strong preference. I'm pretty strongly against breaking changes on a minor release, especially now that we're kind of potentially starting to do some major releases.
Okay. Okay. And then we would just, after this is done, then our instruction to the users would be basically to perform a sync with out of sync only false, right?
And out of sync only equals false, and enable new sync options behavior flag. We need a good name for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Makes sense. I'll do
All
that.
right. Okay. Thank you, Reggie. I'm not sure if this whole paragraph here is the same topic or if you have another one
Yeah,
for
yeah.
triage.
No. This is the topic. This is the
Okay.
issue covered and the
Okay.
bullet.
Got it. Thank you. And we need to select who's going to be doing triage next week. Any volunteers in the call for primary and secondary?
I'm happy to do either.
Thank you, Ryan.
I can go ahead if, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Nitish. All right. Okay, let's go with the discussion topics for the day. I was looking, this one looks pretty straightforward. Reggie, if you don't mind, can we just quickly look into this and then I go back
Sure.
the
Yeah, go.
top ones? So Ryan, this is mainly a question if you can take over that PR. I think the initial contributor here started working in 2023. The last message here was when Alex asked them to for some changes, and we never got a reply back after August 2024, which is a year ago. So I would say, yeah, go ahead. We can close this PR, and you can decide if the code in the current PR is useful. You can branch out of it, or if you think you can, it will be better to start from scratch. It's really up to you. That's
Okay.
my take on
And
that.
and if I just branch from them, they would still get like the credit. I just wanted to make sure because I think a lot of it's going to be very similar. I just wanted to make sure they get the credit for their contribution.
Yes, they do.
Okay. And just for a
Uh,
quick summary, it's just the app set controller. Whenever you enable leader election, it just needs some permissions to be able to acquire leases to determine which controller is primary. So this would just add the ability for the app set controller to have those explicit permissions by default to be able to acquire the leases.
cool. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Yep, thank you.
And yeah, let's go back here. Reggie, you again, please go for it.
All right. So at the last period, I was looking a lot through GitHub issues that we have in the repository, and I was looking at them from different perspectives. And I mean, basically, I think that the goal of this constant looking that I do is to see how we can establish a process of having a roadmap that is more or less planned for our releases. And I mean, not just the major releases. And so I would like to start some kind of working group to address this. And I had a couple of ideas in mind, like initial general ideas for this. First of all, I last 2 weeks I was looking at the issues that are that have like million comments on them. Those scary issues that I think that people are really scared looking at because there is so much noise and it's not even clear whether the problem is still there or not there. There is one user who reported the issue, and then we have 5 more to say, yes, I have this, but they actually have other things. And it's very noisy. And I took those issues and I made a deep dive with a goal to make a TLDR on those issues and to surface the actual action items that we can take from them. And I did it on 9 such issues. Actually, we can maybe you can open Leo this link
Okay, which one? This surface action item?
Yeah. So I've created a new label to mark the issues that are both that have high traffic and the ones that I have created a TLDR for. And my TLDR basically includes like short summary and then action items. Sometimes the action items are, we just need docs for this. Sometimes action items, we need a feature request, but this is like the feature request. It is like, summed and precise. And on some of them, I even closed 2 issues because after I read through them and everything, it was clear that either the issue was solved or it was just misconfiguration or it was tracked in another issue, stuff like that. And now with those 7 issues, there are action items from them, and we can take them and work on them if we find them high priority. So this is an example of such a process. I even actually discovered that one of them was a good first issue, which is always a present because people always look for good first issues and we sometimes don't have anything to give them, right? So even those kind of things. So this is one thing that I was thinking of, maybe if there is a group of people that take this, I don't know, and each of us contributes, I don't know, 4 hours a week, just deep diving and surfacing a summary. And then maybe we can take those issues and say, okay, maybe something from here can go to a roadmap. This is one thing that I have thought of. Another thing was, oh, sorry, Leo, can you go back to the document?
Sure.
Thanks. Another thing that I was thinking about is we have those issues, but then we have things that are coming from triage, and from triage sometimes come like big issues, or we have sometimes big pull requests. Then somehow to take it all and to prioritize it. And another thing is maybe to improve our triage process so that I think we can make it more effective. I don't think it's bad. I think we have a good triage process, but I also think that we can make it more efficient, and we can also make this triage process like more a source of a plan of what we should focus on as a group of maintainers and some community contributors that are eager to do things that are impactful and meaningful, and more. That's my pitch.
Thanks, Reggie. Yeah, as you were describing the triage improvements, something that came to my mind. I agree with that. And when you say you want to create a new working group, would it be a new SIG or not that formal? What do you mean by new working group?
So that's a good question. I'm not really sure that I fully understand what a SIG is, but I'm thinking about like a dedicated Slack channel that everyone who wants to join from us maintainers and maybe some also contributors, I don't know, people who want to join just join there, and there we can have discussion that is like focused on this topic, and basically that.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'll be happy to join the group. This is something that I try to work in the past as well. But yeah, maybe something we can bring up in the maintainers meeting, the next one, Reggie, and we can set it up.
Cool. Sounds great. There was a Nitish, you asked. Sigrid. Okay, what does it take for an issue to be considered a high traffic triage? So just issue that has high traffic, I've taken, just off the top of my head, issues that have more than 30 comments on them. This number can be adjusted. And what it means that it was triaged is that means that this issue has a TLDR, which summarizes all the horrible, noisy conversation that was before it, and has clear action items, or maybe the issue can even be closed. And if so, then also a concise explanation of why you think that this issue can be closed. And basically, this is like the DOD. And after I did that, I put the label high traffic triaged. We can adjust this DOD. It was just something initial that I started. That's it.
All right. Any more questions for Reggie on this suggestion? All right. Thank you, Reggie.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. Christopher, still looking for review. Are you in the
Yes.
call, Christopher?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm just looking to get some more review on my PR for the get resources command that I presented. I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago. I don't remember the exact time, but it's pretty much complete, and I've gotten a little bit of initial review, but I just wanted to see if I could get any more.
Were you working with some of the reviewers on this one, or you're
Uh,
asking for a new reviewer?
just anybody. It was specifically Keith and Nitish were working with me before, but just trying to see if I can get any more feedback or movement on this.
Yeah, so this PR is actually in my to-dos for this week. I unfortunately did not get time to review this, but yeah, I'll be reviewing this PR maybe tomorrow. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christopher. All right, moving on. Michael, is it you or another Michael?
That's me.
All right.
So we've got a long-standing request for a way to have the app project specify specific namespaces and CRD names the users can deploy. So suppose I've got an Argo workflows team, and it's their job to deploy Argo workflows. I would like to be able to construct an app project that gives them permission to install their controller in their namespace, their service accounts, whatever in their namespace they need, and one CRD or just the Argo workflows CRDs. Today, you can't do that. If you give access to deploy CRDs as on the cluster resource whitelist, then you've given full access to all CRDs. At first, folks kind of proposed, well, what if we allowed JSON paths or JQ queries instead of just restricting it to a name? At first, I was kind of like, yeah, that could be cool. That lets us capture more use cases. I think, though, that puts Argo CD in the position of becoming more and more of a policy engine, which I think is better to put in like either Kubernetes RBAC or put it in Kyverno. It also puts us in the position of being an even more complex security tool. And I think simplicity works really in our favor. So all that to say, my proposal would be we provide the ability to filter the cluster resource whitelist. So each list item would have a name field just on cluster resources, not on namespace resources. And that name field would be a glob. I think that our glob library that we process these with allows multiple list items. You do like open curly brace, one glob pattern, comma, another glob pattern, etc. If our glob library that we use here doesn't support that, I would suggest making it a list of globs. Yeah, that's the proposal. I think we get a big win for namespaces and CRDs with that for a relatively simple and safe feature. One weird quirk of this is those are the only two cluster scope resources I can think of where the name has a special meaning. So it would be weird to have a name filter on like a cluster role, but maybe that's fine.
And where this name would be provided is as part of the project configuration? Is that what you're saying, Michael?
Yep, app project resource in the cluster resource whitelist array in each list item on that array as an optional new field.
Refresh my memory. Today, that array is an object or is an array of strings? Don't remember.
It's an array of objects where the
Okay.
keys are currently, I think, group and kind. Version is not filterable.
I see. So you're suggesting to add a name to that list as well.
Correct. Name as either a single glob or a list of globs, depending on the glob library.
Got it.
I really like the idea of list of things, so then you can itemize, because we have that issue now too. It's like you give them access to deploy one cluster role or one CRD, and now they're free to deploy any.
And I think if you give someone access to deploy a single cluster role, you've probably effectively given them God mode, because you're not able to control the contents of a cluster role. That's different from namespaces and CRDs where the metadata.name field has a particular meaning and you're not allowed to like play with the inner contents of that resource.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Reggie asked about sync impersonation. I've not been in the impersonation feature space much, but my initial impression would be this is sort of a completely separate tool. My understanding of impersonation is if you enable impersonation, that becomes your access control model. I don't think we apply both app project rules and impersonation. But even if we do, I don't think there's any reason why this wouldn't be compatible with that. It would be a backwards compatible change. If you don't add anything to the name field, everything continues to work the way it does today.
Is there something written down for that functionality yet?
I think that the
An issue?
Oh, I need to find the issue. Did I not link that? I'm a fool. There is an issue with significant discussion. I don't think it goes into quite as much depth about the implementation or design as I just did. So I can add a write-up. Jan, do you feel like it deserves a proposal, or is it enough just to write it up in the?
No, I don't think it would require a full-blown proposal,
Okay.
but like just something written to, to let it soak in and helps the
GitHub issue, I
discussion
think.
probably.
Yeah, I can add something to the issue that exists. I just have to find it again.
So in the issue, someone is describing what you presented here, Michael, or what you describe is something that you have in your mind, basically.
They've described basically just not in as much detail, but it's basically that feature.
Got it.
Yeah, I'll track down the issue link and add it.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Yep.
Sounds good. It seems no objection in the call. All right. Any more questions for Michael on this one? Cool. And one last minute topic here. Nitish, you added a namespace issue. Want me to click the link?
Yeah, for sure. So actually, this is a PR. So I brought this issue in the previous meeting, which was about app set in any namespace is not working, especially when you created some other project other than the default project. And I think the problem main that was lying that we were when you were calling the generate when you were making the generate API call, you were passing the app set namespace. But this time I have changed the namespace to the app set, the server namespace. So I'm seeing that Michael has already reviewed this PR, but just want to maybe get some thoughts on if anyone have any thoughts if passing the server namespace to basically to generate the manifest is actually a good idea or not. Not to generate the manifest, sorry, but in order to basically for the Git for the generators, I would say.
I think it totally depends on what the generators are using the namespace for. The generators that I looked at primarily used the namespace to locate things like access secrets. And I think that everything's documented today to say, well, if you want to get an SCM API token, it's got to be in the controller namespace. So I would just go through the different generators, and where there is a namespace field that is very clearly meant to refer to the controller namespace, just change the name of the field to controller namespace to make it uber clear. And then if you find namespace fields where it's like, oh, well, this could be used for some other reason that it should be the appset namespace, rename it to appset namespace. And then from there, we can go into, does everything make sense for us to pass these two different values to those different places?
Oh, but so okay, I mean that could be related to changing the name of the variable. But I think the underlying concern is maybe that in the generate application set apps, we're passing the server namespace and not the application set namespace. Is that an okay approach for us to do that?
I think it completely depends on how the generator is intended to function. If the generator is intended to retrieve information from the appset namespace, then we should document that and make sure that that's the behavior. My feeling so far is that all of the generators that I've seen are intended to use the namespace of the controller in order to retrieve information that's useful for the app set. And if that's the case for all the generators, we should just make that clear in the code and in the documentation and make sure that the behavior reflects that.
So when you say the s.ns, which the server namespace is, it's actually the controller's namespace, right?
Yeah, they're equivalent. Folks should be running the server in the same namespace as the
Okay,
controller. If they're not, they're already on a weird path.
got it. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nitish. Any more questions for Nitish on this one? Okay. Any more topics someone wants to discuss today before we close? We have 5 minutes left. Okay, if not, we'll conclude the meeting now, and thanks everybody for joining, and see you next week.
Cool. Thanks, Leo.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.